All right, you guys, today we're going to finish up 1.3, which is about midpoint and distance. So today we're talking specifically about distance. So how can we find the length of line segments in the coordinate plane? So let's remind ourselves that the coordinate plane is, the set of two number lines that cross at a 90-degree angle and make up kind of like a grid where you plot points and stuff and you can draw things. So that's a coordinate plane. So distance, what is distance? Okay. Distance is basically the measurement of the length of something. Okay, so when we find the length of a line segment, we're actually finding the distance between one end point to the other end point. Okay, so we have what's called the distance formula. So the distance formula, I'm just going to give it to you. Has a lot of square roots and squaring. So okay, hold on. Okay, so the distance formula, where A is x1, y1, and B is x2, y2, and they're end points. So basically in the coordinate plane, you have 2 points, A and B. They're the end points. To find the distance, you're going to use their coordinates. And you do the difference between the x's, squared, and the difference between the y points, squared. And this gives you the length of the x and the length of the y. You add those two together, and then you square root the total of it. Okay, I know that that's a lot of steps, so please make sure that you write this in there and maybe put a box around it, put 12 stars around it. I don't care, just make sure that it's very obvious that this is a very important formula. D stands for distance, obviously. Okay. So a long time ago, mathematicians were like, well, we have to find the distance between two different points all the time because they're not always flat, they're not always horizontal, they're not always vertical in the coordinate plane. So what are some methods that we can use to try and find those distances? So when they have points A and B, mathematicians saw that they could make a right triangle out of them. So you remember when you were looking at 2 points in the coordinate plane and you guys make slope triangles? It's again because mathematicians are like, hey, we know so much about right triangles. We can use the things that we know about right triangles to find all sorts of other stuff about them. So because you can make a right triangle between any 2 points, okay, you can use the distance formula or you can use Pythagorean theorem. So here is a coordinate grid with points A and B on it. Okay, coordinate grid, X and Y axis with points A and B on it. And they've created a Pythagorean triangle. So basically, Pythagorean theorem has this is A, this is B, and this is C, right? So Pythagorean theorem, Pythag, is A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? Okay. But if we want to find the distance or the length of C, then we all of a sudden we square root C squared. So I'm going to use a different color so you can see it. We square root C squared, and that means we square root everything on the left-hand side. And now we have C, or the distance between A and B, is equal to the square root of A squared plus B squared. Okay, where A is the length between this point and this point, and B is the length between this point and this point. So basically, the distance formula is derived from Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to write that over here. The distance formula came from Pythagoras. Okay. Now I want you to stop, pause this video, think about it for a minute, and see if there are any things that don't make quite sense to you. Like, how did this Pythagorean theorem become this up here? Think about any of those questions so that you can ask them if you have them. Basically, all this second section is just telling you why we use the formula. Like, why does it look the way that it does? Okay. New video.